All right, today we're going to talk about a principle that could seriously change how you think about your work, your stuff, and even your own happiness. It's called the 80-20 rule. You know that feeling, right? Your to-do list is a mile long, you're bouncing from one thing to the next, just putting out fires. But at the end of the day, you kind of feel like you haven't made any real progress on the things that actually matter. You are so not alone. But what if the answer wasn't about doing more, but actually doing a whole lot less? And this is the core idea we're diving into. It sounds kind of crazy, but it's deceptively simple. A tiny fraction of what you do is responsible for the vast majority of your results. The real secret is just figuring out what that powerful 20% is. Now, this isn't some hot new productivity trend from a tech startup. Nope. This idea has actually been around for more than 100 years. So let's do a quick trip back in time. So it all got started back in the late 1800s with an Italian economist named Vilfredo Pareto. He was looking into land ownership, and he stumbled upon this really bizarre pattern. 80% of the land in Italy was owned by just 20% of the people. And then he started seeing that same lopsided ratio everywhere, from the pea pods in his garden to the way wealth was spread out across different countries. And just like that, the Pareto Principle was born. We usually just call it the 80-20 rule, and it's a really simple observation. For most things in life, a huge chunk of the results, we're talking 80%, comes from just a tiny sliver of the causes, that little 20%. Think of it like this. It's not about finding perfect balance. It's about realizing the scale is already heavily weighted to one side. So the whole game is to stop treating everything equally and instead pour your energy into that vital 20% of causes that are doing almost all of the heavy lifting. So, okay, this sounds cool for economics or big business, but what does it have to do with you? Well, I'm telling you, once you start looking for this pattern, you are going to see it absolutely everywhere. This is usually the big aha moment for people. I mean, think about your own closet. It's probably packed with clothes, but be honest, you reach for the same few favorite outfits over and over again, right? That's not a weird quirk. That's the Pareto Principle staring right back at you. So just take a second here. The closet thing is just the tip of the iceberg. Think about your daily routine, the apps on your phone, the food you cook. Where else does this 80-20 imbalance pop up for you? And what's really wild is just how universal this is. That kitchen drawer that's overflowing with gadgets, you probably only use that one favorite spatula. Your kid's toy box, I bet they play with the same small handful of toys all the time. From our phone apps to the rooms in our house, this pattern is just everywhere. Okay, so we see the pattern. We get it. But just seeing it and actually using it are two totally different things. So let's get practical. Let's break down how you can find your most important tasks. And this gets us to the biggest hurdle, right? It's one thing to know that 20% of your efforts create 80% of your results. It's a whole other thing to figure out which specific actions make up that critical 20%. How do you separate what's vital from what's just trivial? Well, luckily, there's a pretty simple process for this. First, just do a brain dump. List out everything you're working on, and then get super clear on your number one goal. Step 2, go down that list and give each task an impact score from 1 to 10. How much does it actually help you hit your goal? Then estimate the time it takes. Third, do some simple math. Just divide the impact score by the time spent. This gives you a clear objective value. And finally, you focus on that top 20%, and you get ruthless about cutting out the rest. Let's look at a quick example to make it real. Let's say your goal is passing an exam. Taking mock exams, that's a huge impact. Let's call it a 9. And it only takes 2 hours a week. The study group is decent, maybe a 6 on impact, but it takes up 3 hours. So when we do the math, mock exams get a ratio of 4.5, but the study group only gets a 2. So look at that. The math makes it totally obvious. For every hour you spend, those mock exams are giving you more than double the impact of the study group. It's not about what feels more productive, it's about what the numbers show. That is your high-impact 20%. All right, now that we have a solid tool for our tasks, let's zoom out a bit. Because this principle, it can be applied to so much more than just a to-do list. This is the final step, and honestly, it's the most powerful one. It's about seeing the 80-20 rule not just as a tool, but as a mental model, like a lens you can use to look at your entire life and figure out what really moves the needle. So you can start asking yourself some of these bigger questions. In your job, what's the 20% of your work that actually creates 80% of your success? What are the 20% of activities that bring you 80% of your joy?
And on the flip side, what's the 20% of situations or people causing 80% of your stress? And which 20% of your friends and family give you 80% of your fulfillment? Identifying these lets you double down on the good stuff and start cutting out the bad.
So I'll leave you with this question. Don't try to overhaul your whole life overnight. Just based on what we've talked about, what is the one thing you could change, starting today, by focusing on your vital 20%? Answering that question might just be the most productive thing you do all week.